I might have said I was done with Suicide Squad for this episode. Well, I guess I've been feeling it this season. I had a lot of requests in the comments for a Harley build, and I've always said, nah, I'm not sure about Harley. I can't lie though, I've been sleeping on her. She's great. She's provided more hours of fun that now I am good for this episode, but this build has been a testament to how much flexibility there is in the build crafting of Suicide Squad now. You can go all in on crit shots, all in on melee, all in on traversal attacks, or build around afflictions. But what if I told you we can make Harley a walking talking grenade? And that's what this build is. One of the things that the team at Rocksteady said was that having different options in terms of you can be survivability or you can be a glass cannon. This is very much a glass cannon build. It's really high risk, but oh boy, it's really high reward. As always, before I show off this explosive build, if this build helps you, dropping a like helps me, and I'd appreciate that. And if you're after more comic book shenanigans, including Suicide Squad, Marvel Rivals, or any comic book news that might come out of D23 next week, consider subscribing. I would love for you to stick around. Right, this build then, before I walk you through it, I'm currently at Mastery 110, and I've been down maybe like twice, and that's only because of the high risk nature of it. You are essentially an explosive yourself, and I think that's pretty sick. Right, let me show you this build and I'll talk about how it works in motion. So here is the build. Now you will notice that there is only one Killer Frost Infamy set in here. There's a reason for that. I'm not really feeling the actual 3-piece bonus that we've got going on here, but the synergies that Killer Frost gives is crazy. So in our first slot, we got Kinetic Theory. All that matters in here is that you have a tier 1 weapon. I went for the Kinetic Theory SMG, which gives us crit hits on burn enemies, adds a stack of heat absorption, but will remove that burning effect. Heat absorption will increase your damage by 25% for 30 seconds, and now stack up to 20 times because we're in the Frozen Hearts bonus. The main weapon we're going to be using is Master's Firefly Pyromaniac. This weapon just will not drop for me again ever since I got the first Master version of it. So what this does is crit hits with this weapon will burn enemies, but the alternate fire version will shoot bullets that deal 3000% increased damage to burn enemies. Enemies are going to be burning in this build, so let's just get that out of the way. The synergy that we have here is the Ice Shard Inferno. This is Killer Frost and Firefly. Each enemy you burn adds a stack of Ice Shard Inferno. When you reach 20 stacks, you explode, and that's what I was talking about, at the cost of 100% of your shield, and it will freeze all enemies within 20 meters and damage them for 5% of the health. That is going to pair with something else, but we'll get back to that shortly. In the melee slot, we've got Parasite's Power Absorption. This increases melee damage by 300% on afflicted target. If it doesn't die, it's absorbed and increases the damage of your next melee hit by 1000%. This just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking. But the main thing that we want here is number 1, the Diablo Blaze as our Affliction Strike. Number 2, the Synergy. Each enemy you kill adds a stack of life energy. When that reaches 10, you get a damage shield that increases your max shield capacity by 50% for 60 seconds, boosting that survivability. But we'll come back to that. Firefly's Firestorm. This is the crux of the build. If you do not have this, the build is going to be pretty much rendered useless. So this grenade burns any enemy hit by it and increases the radius of the next grenade by 50% for each enemy you burn, up to 200%. This is going to spread across the entire map, basically. It is crazy. But it goes back to that whole Ice Shard Inferno, where burning 20 enemies will then cause that explosion that I spoke about before. That's going to mean that we are constantly able, every time we throw this grenade basically, we are going to be causing ourselves to explode. That then pairs with Parasite's Desperate Absorption. We've got a Master 3 version on here. When your shield reaches 0, you deal 1000% of your maximum shield capacity as damage to all enemies within 20 meters. That synergizes with what I spoke about here, where you're going to explode after you reach that 20 stacks. So not only are you going to freeze all these enemies and deal 5% of their maximum health, you're then going to do this and deal out 1000% of your maximum shield capacity, which is your maximum shield capacity plus what you got here in life energy absorption, which is going to increase that by another 50%. So you're going to do even more damage. I've then gone for the traversal mod of Poison Ivy. What this does increases damage to afflicted enemies by 50%. A lot of enemies are going to be afflicted. In the neck bomb mod, we've got Heat Waves Overheater. Each burning enemy you kill gives a stack of overheating, When this stacks up to 20, all firearm hits, grenades, and melee hits will burn enemies. That lasts for 30 seconds. Again, that is a really good option because you're just spreading burn everywhere and then you're constantly going to be exploding all around you. Now that comes for the part where, okay, your shield is going to be down a lot. That's where you want to keep your Suicide Strike handy so that you can switch to that. Finally, our lucky charm is Philosopher's Stone Shard. After afflicting 5 enemies with the same affliction, which is going to be burn or freeze, you gain a 500% damage bonus against that affliction for 30 seconds. Crazy. Crazy amounts of damage that we're able to do against either burned enemies or frozen enemies, depending on if you're burning them for the first time or you're exploding and then freezing them. And that will give us another synergy, but truth be told, this synergy isn't really viable for this build. Onto the talents then. So in the first column, these are the ones that you want to have. Increasing grenade explosion radius by 20% and giving us an extra grenade. SMG kills increase the damage of your next melee hit. Enemy kills regenerate 1% health and 1% shield. Grenade hits have a 25% chance to spawn an additional live grenade. Huge. Enemies hit by grenades take 20% more damage for 10 seconds. Enemy kills generate 10% Suicide Strike resource. And then the Ballerina is the final one to end that column on. In the second column, we've got Untouchable, which gives us extra shield capacity. Damage reduction being up by 15%. Shield overcharge increasing by 50% and shield pickup amount by 25%. Enemies hit by grenades deal 25% less damage for 15 seconds, and that's going to be a lot of enemies. Tightrope hat, which means that we can actually cheat death every now and then. And then Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which will increase our firearm and grenade damage by 150% and 100% respectively. A big one in the final column, which is Bird of Prey, which means that traversal attack kills can give us 25% chance to drop extra grenade ammo. We want to be replenishing those grenades as much as possible. Again, ground evades and slides will increase the damage of your grenade by 50%. And then the final one, Ultimate Refresher. Every time you pop that squad ultimate, you will regenerate 100% health and 200% shield just to keep that survivability nice and high. In terms of squad skills, I would focus on grenade damage, squad ultimate duration, and damage to burn enemies. Right, let's talk about how this build works in motion. So, in terms of executing it in the gameplay, we're immediately going to want to let loose with either grenades or that melee affliction that I spoke about. The trick is to keep Harley moving. If you're not dodging, evading or grappling, you're going to be a very, very easy target alongside your shields being down. My overall flow is getting into the battle, chucking a grenade, unleashing the explosive fire effect for the first time, which will then not only freeze so many enemies, but damage them too as I explode. Then I'll pop the squad ultimate, buy myself some time to get shields back, and then go around spreading as much fire to as many enemies as possible, burn them, and keep that loop going where I just keep constantly exploding, losing my shield, but the enemies just keep dying and dying. The reason we want to spread as much fire around as well is that it buffs our damage and then it negates theirs. The main thing that you want to watch out for is when your shield is gone, snipers, brutes, or environmental freeze attacks are the 3 major threats that you need to be aware of. Grunts should either die by a shield explosion or the subsequent burning of the Diablo Blaze. Really, this build lives and dies by a few things. Your ability to keep generating grenades, keeping Suicide Strike handy to recharge the shields when things get hectic, spreading the burn effect to as many enemies as possible, but most importantly, staying close to enemies so that when you explode, they go down with your shield. It's actually a really fun build to utilise, and it puts the suicide into Suicide Squad, that's for sure. Anyway, as always, let me know what you think of this build. If you plan on using it, any feedback or anything, let me know in the comments down below. This will be my last build for the episode, but I'll have more cooking for episode 4, that's for sure. Maybe check out some of the other Suicide Squad or DC games coverage on the channel because there's a ton of that. Like I said, dropping a like is helpful, and if you want more comic book shenanigans, consider subscribing. As always, you'll find my socials linked in the description down below with more bad comic book opinions if you're after that. Other than that, I hope you have a terrific day, look after yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one.